Howdy all and welcome back. It's Mr. Callen here to help you with Chapter 9, Lesson 4. We're talking fractions, decimals, and percents for today. So our goal, we're going to take everything we've learned about simplifying fractions. Yes, we know we can find common numbers and reduce the fraction. But notice those are equivalent amounts, just two different ways of representing it. Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to say if we have a percent, can you rewrite it in decimal form? Can you rewrite it in fraction form? And of course, what we're going to need eventually is to use those representations to solve more complicated proportion and percent problems. All right, no matter what the date, no matter what the assignment number, go ahead and pause your video, title your page, get ready for notes, come on back when you're ready. Notice that page 245, we got 12 to 52 evens only and 54 to 59. Please do write down the directions, but you do not need to write the problem out, simply your work and your answer after the directions. Let's go ahead and evaluate, just kind of break down that word percent. Anytime you see or hear those letters that sound cent, percent, percentage, think about how many years in a century, how many cents in a dollar. And of course, we all know that means 100. So percent always means out of 100. Now you can use that percent symbol as a way to write a fraction with a common denominator out of 100. Now, I do have an example down below. Instead of saying that big long phrase, 17 out of every 100 professional basketball players are female, you can simply use that symbol, 17%, and that is implied now what that means. So how do you rewrite a percent to a fraction? Well, use what we know about percents. If percent means per 100, you can take that percent number and simply set it in the numerator with a denominator of 100. From there, reduce. So 50% literally means 50 out of 100, which could also be rewritten as 1 out of 2. Another example here, what about 125%? Well, don't be intimidated if it's over 100. Again, that percent means per 100, so we can rewrite 125 over 100. We can reduce to 5/4, and finally write it in simplest form. So 125% literally means 125 out of 100, and it can also be written as 1 and 1/4. I would encourage you right now, pause your video. I'd like you to rewrite all these percents as fractions in simplest form, and when you're ready, come on back and we'll check them together. 25%, naturally, some of you already have this memorized. 25 out of 100, which can be rewritten in simplest form as 1 out of 4. In fact, if I were to rewrite all these out of 100, we have 60%, we have 175%, and we have 120%. Now 60% will reduce by 10 and then by 2. In other words, you could reduce by 20 to get a final answer of 3/5. 175%, you got two choices here, ladies and gents, but both of your choices will lead to the same answer. Now some of you will choose to first change it to a mixed number and then reduce by 25. Others of you may choose to reduce first and then rewrite it. No, I don't care. That's the nice thing about mathematics. You got two different paths leading to the same answer. 120%, you could reduce that by 10. You could reduce that by 2. And of course, you could rewrite that as 1 whole and 1/5. So pause if you need. Rewind the video. If you need any more help, any further lesson on turning percents to fractions. Speaking of pausing, go ahead, pause this. What fraction of the class preferred spaghetti? So if they give us 25%, it's simply asking you to turn that percent into a fraction in simplest form. So if you'd like, pause, come on back to check your answers. Pizza, 30%, reduces to 3/10. Chicken strips, 15%, which will reduce by 5 to 3/20. All right, so again, rewind if you need. That was naming percents, renaming percents as fractions in simplest form. Now let's talk about changing percents into decimals, but quite frankly, the idea is still the same. If we know that a percent means per 100, you could rewrite it as per 100, and then so long as this is a power of 10, we should be able to transform it into decimal form. Simply make sure that fraction is in the hundredths place. So we'll write 56 hundredths as a decimal. 8%, in similar way, we can write 8 over 100. But make sure that you do not rewrite it as this. Ladies and gents, that means 8/10. We need that 8 in the hundredths place. Now, what if it's over 100? For instance, 120%. Well, you can still rewrite it as 120 over 100. Some of you are good from here. Others of you might choose to rename this as 12/10, or even go so far as 1 20 hundredths or 1 2/10. The point is, here you can quickly get to 1 2/10. Yes, you can write it this way, but you don't really need that 0 if you wish. What I would not recommend that you do is to eventually write this as 1 1/5, because as we know, if we're rewriting fractions into decimal form, it's a lot more difficult if that denominator is not a power of 10, tenths, or hundredths, or thousandths, etc. So it's not wrong, it's just not best. I would highly recommend keep that denominator as a power of 10 so you can quickly transform it into decimal form. All right, let's see what you got. Pause the video, come on back when you're ready. 17%, 17 hundredths, put 17 in the hundredths place. 2% or 2 hundredths, make sure 2 is in that hundredths place, not in the tenths place. If you were to write this, what that really means is 20 hundredths or 20%, which is much larger than what we have. 104%, 1 whole 4 hundredths, think about that. You could rewrite this if you wish as 104 hundredths. And quickly see why there's still, after all, it's over 100%, so it should be over 1 whole and then some parts. Now, I think this is the most challenging part of the lesson, so let's pause, rename these percents, still changing percents into fraction form. And if I were to rewrite 8 1/3 as a fraction with 100 in the denominator, now look what we have. Let's write this in old school division form. We have 8 1/3 divided by 100. Which can be rewritten, of course, anytime you're dividing whole numbers, fractions, mixed numbers, you want to change them into improper fractions. So I'll rewrite 100 as 100 wholes, and I'll rewrite 8 1/3 as 25 thirds. Now we know there is no such thing as dividing in the division of two fractions. As a matter of fact, we change that to its multiplicative inverse. And you will see almost always, with a little bit of disappearing ink here, almost always we will be able to cross-reduce quite nicely. Now in this case, 25 goes into both 25 and 100. 25 divided by 25 is 1. 100 divided by 25 is 4. And so we end up with 1 times 1 and 3 times 4. And by the way, it kind of makes sense. I'm going to tidy that up a little bit. After all, 8% is a little smaller than 10% or 1/10. And 1/12 is also a little smaller than 1/10. All right, let's do the same thing here. Let's rewrite this. 106 fourths, 106 and 1/4, excuse me. Write it as a percent, and let's rewrite that. 106 and 1/4 divided by 100. We'll change that into 425 fourths. We'll change that into 100 wholes. And of course, let's rewrite it. Multiplying by 1 100th. And once again, you'll be able to look diagonally and see this one divides quite nicely. A lot of times it'll be 50s or 5s. This time we'll go with 25s again. Now 100 divided by 25, still 4. 425 divided by 25, I do believe, is 17. So 17 times 1, 17. 4 times 4, 16. And if you look, it does make number sense. 106%, little more than a whole, and 1 1/16, a little more than a whole. So I think that's the most challenging part of the lesson, folks, changing percents into fractions. We know, we have seen how to simplify complex fractions. Simply turn it into old school division form, remembering that there is no division. We multiply by its multiplicative inverse. You'll notice both of these cross-reduce quite nicely, and we can now deal with that complex fraction and turn it into something that makes sense. All right, folks, rewind if you need. Otherwise, go about your business. And if you're in class with me, we'll do a couple of these problems very quickly together. Otherwise, 12 to 52 is evens only. 54 to 59, please write those directions and then work and answer. Take care, do well. Let's grow, folks. We'll see you soon.